here we are, the first video of 2024, and although I was going to leave it until later on in this year, I thought it's best to kick things off with a Titanic story. Now, of course, I've done a video on the Nomadic, but in this video, I've decided to look into two new tenders that hardly anyone talks about. So, I will probably say no more than this, and I want to thank my friend DK for narrating this video once again. DK, thank you so much, it really means the world to me, and it's great to have you kicking off 2024 with the channel to share this brilliant story. And until then, I will leave you in DK's hands as we retell the story of these unknown tender ships.
At the Titanic Belfast Museum, a tender sits outside in the Hamilton dry dock where she is visited and admired by thousands of visitors and passers-by. This is the tender ship, the SS Nomadic. She is the last survivor of the White Star Line's vessels, having an interesting life and career. She also had a sister ship named the SS Traffic, and on the night of the 10th of April 1912, both tenders would carry passengers from Cherbourg and on board the Titanic before the ship left for her final port of call, Ireland. But did you know two other tender ships were with the Titanic while she was in Queenstown, Ireland? If you did, well, you came to the right channel. In this video, we will be discussing the history of the paddle steamer America and the Ireland, the Irish tender ships of the RMS Titanic. Although there were named tender ships, the America and Ireland were known as paddle steamers. These type of vessels or steamboats were powered by a steam engine that drive paddle wheels to propel the craft through the water. The paddle steamers were built to become the indispensable workhouses of the immigrant trade. They were important to the White Star Line as selling third-class tickets made the most profits. As third-class passengers were immigrating to America from other countries and third-world countries and others like the United Kingdom and Europe, passengers bought one-way passage tickets to travel into the United States and Canada, where they would arrive to start a new life. These tickets were often marketable because the company would attract new levels of services on board the ships like the Titanic, and for that, they would provide notably good service. But to travel on board these luxurious ships, third-class passengers need to do long lengths of traveling and save money to afford a ticket either individually or for their loved ones who would travel in groups. Tender ships like the paddle steamer America and the paddle steamer Ireland would often assist passengers to travel from piers to ocean liners, as by 1912, ocean liners were considered too big to dock in them. The Titanic was no exception, as Rockets Point didn't have room for the 882-foot-long vessel. Now we looked into the background, we will move on to the history of the paddle steamer America and Ireland. The paddle steamer Ireland and America were built in 1891 at the Clyde Shipping Company and were registered in Glasgow. Little is known about their launch and maiden voyages, but however, they would likely have begun their services for the White Star Line before the end of the 19th century. At Roche's Point, paddle steamers had tendered various liners for the White Star Line while the liners would embark passengers. These ships would include the Celtic, the Republic, the Oceanic, and the RMS Olympic during her maiden voyage in June of 1911. But on the morning of the 11th of April, the paddle steamer America and the paddle steamer Ireland began their duties at Roche's Point when the new ocean liner, the Titanic, dropped its anchor. However, the docking facilities were unsuitable for a ship as large as the Titanic. On board the paddle steamer Ireland, who was ferrying members of the press who were taking pictures and interviewing paying customers who were boarding the Titanic. The paddle steamer America also carried 123 passengers. The tender ships also disembarked passengers including photographer Father Francis Brown and architect Stanley James May. However, there was one deserter who left the Titanic. Crewman fireman John Coffey. Coffey was a Queenstown resident, and although he signed on to the Titanic as a fireman, he won a one-way passage back to his home from Southampton. Alongside the tenders, there were several smaller vessels carrying vendors set sail to meet the Titanic around 2 miles offshore. The vendors were selling local specialties to first-class passengers. The tender ships also carried 1,385 bags of mail that were to be taken on board the Titanic to travel to the United States. The paddle steamer America and Ireland returned to the docks at 1:30 p.m. when a set of whistles were exchanged between the Titanic and the tender ships. As the tender ships were chugging back along the waterfront as the ocean liner raised her anchor, steerage passenger Eugene Daly began to play Aaron's Lament on his bagpipes. The Titanic left Queenstown around the same time, where she would begin sailing towards her final destination, New York City. Before the Titanic set sail, Daly played A Nation once again on the paddle steamer America, which was well received with delight and applause by fellow travelers. But as we know, following the departure from Queenstown, the Titanic would sink a few days later following a collision with an iceberg. When the news of the sinking reached Ireland, the America and Ireland responded by flying their flags at half-mast on the 19th of April. During the First World War, the paddle steamer Ireland served on the seas as a minesweeper, and after that she continued her duty as a tender ship until she was scrapped in April of 1928. The paddle steamer America was later renamed the Seymour, but there is little information about her. She was scrapped on the 11th of December 1945. The stories of the paddle steamer America and the paddle steamer Ireland were overshadowed by the Titanic and the SS Nomadic, but hey, despite this, we hope that this video will bring more attention to these tender ships, for they deserve recognition that they didn't have before, and become important tenders in the Titanic story.